1. I moved to the Philippines in the year 2000 and lived in my grandma's house in Cavite with my aunt and our nannies. I was about 4 years old when we moved. I was a dumb kid not knowing anything about Filipino culture nor the language. To sum up some of the experiences I had, I'll list them in bullet points. We lived in this subdivision called Città Italia. First off, after my grandma passed away in California due to an aneurysm in 2000. 2 weeks after we flew to the Philippines, my grandfather built a small room in the house dedicated to her. From what my mom told me, there were instances where I would faint in the house and my eyes would roll to the back of my head. And I would say, "I love you, Tita, Auntie," non-stop, and they would run me to the hospital where everything would come back normal. She would also tell me that I would be in that room for hours talking to Grandma, but would not have any recollection of it. Another experience I had in the house was when I was about 7 or 8. We were privileged enough to have 2 nannies who lived with us called yayas. One afternoon, I was watching TV in the living room and got hungry, so I was calling out to my nanny to ask if she could cook me some food. Now, the layout of the house was basically the living room leading to a small hallway with a door at the end of the stairs facing just next to it. Outside of that door is the kitchen and dining room that was built out of mostly sheet metal or hierro in the Philippines. There was also a window to the left of that door that peers into the dining room table area. So as I was passing by the window, calling out to my nanny, I saw her walk by wearing a red shirt and dress. I got kind of annoyed that she ignored me, so I called out louder and louder until I heard footsteps coming down the stairs and asking me what I wanted. It was my nanny coming down the stairs. I asked her if there was anyone else in the house, and she said no, she had been napping upstairs. Needless to say, I freaked out. Lastly, for this post, in the subdivision, me and my buddies would ride our bikes until nightfall. Approximately 7:30 p.m. or 8 p.m. Curfews, am I right? One night, as we were all biking down this main street that I believe was called Via Corrente, we all, for some reason, stopped our chatter and stopped our bikes simultaneously. To our shock, we saw a ball of fire that looked like a man's legs in the corner of an abandoned house. The ball of fire wasn't really touching the ground, and as we screamed, the ball of light moved towards us. I scurried out of there, and after about 5 minutes, we all met at the park to discuss what we saw. Anyone else have a similar experience? 2. After I graduated last May, I decided to take up a job at my local jail. Nothing long-term, just figured I'd work for a year and save up some cash before college. Flash forward a little bit, and I'm only a few weeks into training. I've always liked the idea that ghosts really existed, but at that point, I really couldn't say I ever actually saw one. However, that all changed while taking post one night. This time was a little after 5 a.m., and I was sitting behind my desk. Absolutely bored to tears. So, being a good little deputy, I was spinning around in my chair, honestly trying not to fall asleep. This was hour 11 of a 12-hour shift, so I'm just killing time before I get to go home. Now, to give you a little visual of where I am in a big giant room with a bunch of cells. At one end of the room is the officer's desk with big windows behind it. These windows are super reflective, so officers can look into the pod from the hallway. But inmates can't look into the hallway from inside of the pod. At the other end of this pod are all the cells. This particular pod has some cells that were behind a second pane of glass. Still with me? Because this is important, I promise. Anyway, I'm spinning around in my chair at my desk and happen to glance up at the reflective windows behind the desk. As I do, some movement catches my eyes upstairs. There is someone walking around upstairs, out of their cell but behind the glass. I stare at this in disbelief for a moment, and instantly freak the fuck out. I was thinking somewhere along the lines of, "Holy fucking shit, who the hell is out of their cell at this hour? Oh man, my ass is fucking grass, man." I quickly turn around and see no one up there. I scramble and check the monitor that gives me control of the cell doors and make sure all of them are locked, which they are. I even go up there myself and make sure everything is as secure as can be. Somewhere in the middle of me making sure I'm not about to get fired, it dawned on me that was a motherfucking ghost. There was no mistaking it. I 1000% saw someone up there. Now, I don't mean I saw a quick little shadow or a suspicious-looking speck of dust, no. I was distinctly looking at someone in an orange jumpsuit walking around up there. I could tell you this guy's haircut, his height, general build, and even what kind of beard he had. To be honest, I was totally banking on this happening at some point. I mean, from my first day I could tell that place was uber-haunted. So I immediately get my corporal on the horn and tell her excitedly that I saw a ghost, but things don't end there. After that, I was bragging to anyone and everyone about my little encounter, with some mixed reactions. My sergeant says he doesn't really believe in ghosts, but some deputies told me they've definitely seen some paranormal stuff on duty too. However, it's what the sergeant on day shift shared that has really stuck with me. He told me that they had an inmate commit suicide in that same pod a few years prior. I'd already been told that by a few people that have been there a while. I gave a description of the guy I saw, and we decided to look up the inmate, just to see if they looked the same. It was him. It was definitely the guy I saw walking around upstairs. Right down to his skinny face, and the billy goat beard, there was no mistaking it. I've talked to some inmates about it, and I've had more than one tell me that sometimes they can see and hear someone walk by their cells and peeking in at the late hours of the night. It can't be a correctional officer they're talking about, because they're always wearing an orange jumpsuit. Well, that's my spooky experience. I didn't really have any notable encounters after that, but I'd be happy to answer any questions any of you might have. But I hope you find this interesting. 3. It has been many years, but I've never forgotten this experience. What made me remember it today, I couldn't tell you. I've had more encounters with the paranormal in my lifetime than I can even count, but this one specifically still boggles my mind. I was about 5 years old, 30 now. The details are still so vivid. I was living in the suburbs of Chicago, a 2-story mid-econ house with a big back privacy fenced-in yard for what it was worth there. Nothing fancy, just comfortable. The ground floor was the garage and basement living room area with a small bathroom. This level was built against a small incline, meaning the front of the house was at ground level, however the back was about 3 to 4 feet into the incline. Tornado Alley Protection 101. The second floor was living quarters. This meant that the deck out of the kitchen was elevated roughly 5 feet from the ground in the backyard, stairs running parallel along the back porch, and lattice surrounding the bottom for winter furniture storage. Seeing as it was summer, all the furniture was actually on the porch. One day I was playing by myself in the backyard. It was gray with no sunlight to be found, but not anything I would describe as dreary. I do not actually recall if it was supposed to rain. I simply went outside to be outside. I hopped on a swing on my swing set. You know, the basic 90s 2-swing and a 4-foot slide. Simply swinging. I felt a breeze, but this breeze sent a chill up my spine. I heard the lilac bushes in front of me rustle. The breeze came from behind me, but the bushes went from right to left, where the stairs to the porch were. Somewhere in those couple seconds, I stopped my momentum of swinging abruptly. Remember when you were in grade school on the playground, and you had your momentum but dug those heels in for that abrupt stop that jarred you in your heels, dragged your toes, and felt it in your calf? Yeah, that. I knew I couldn't scream. I simply got up and went towards the stairs, maybe 25 feet away. Once I was halfway there, I heard this growl, unlike anything I have ever heard before, to this day, even in movies. I stopped dead in my tracks, petrified. I knew I couldn't run around either side of my house. Truly, in my gut, the front door was on the opposite side of the house, and I would have had to unlock 2 locks on the privacy fence either way I went. It was too far for my little legs. I, to this day, have no idea how I could have known that at that age, so I ran up the stairs. As I was running up the stairs, I looked onto the porch, Being a lattice, there was more than enough ability to see. Why I looked, I will never know. It was maybe the third stare when I turned. Despite being terrified, despite feeling this, what I've come to find out later in life, dark energy, I stopped and I turned. No more than 5 feet away from me was a small person, no more than 2.5 feet tall, male, wearing black, the best I can describe, tattered clothing. Think Dobby's wear, but in black, meets mummy wrap. His face was concealed a small portion. I can't describe the details, but he was clothed in what I remember to be a shirt gown, and there was a headpiece. I kept trying to rattle my mind if it was a wrap or a hat, but I feel like that is minuscule at this point. Maybe he did have pants, maybe it was a hat, maybe he was even wearing shoes. I was too distracted seeing his eyes, black with a yellow tinge. It was probably all of 3 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. I don't know how or why, but the next thing I knew, my feet were running up the stairs towards the house. As I was rounding the top couple of steps, I felt something try to grab my ankle. Somehow I got away, and I ran straight into the kitchen, locking the door behind me. My mother turned around to me, crying. I told her there was something out there, something under the deck, a little person, a bad person. He's scary. However this came out to her, she told me it was a raccoon. Nothing to be afraid of. Dad, the same thing. I knew and still know it was not a raccoon. For years, I never walked down those stairs, afraid that someone would grab my ankle, or even played in the yard without a parent. I never even went on the deck. If I did, I was peeping through the cracks first, and there was still a parent. I even stopped going into the basement. That looming feeling never left me any time I was near that porch. It was always carried onto the basement, though that actually could have been a child's fear talking. That feeling, an indescribable sensation of darkness. But I remember it, to this day, with so much detail. 4. In 2016, I was in my summer house, in autumn, alone, and I was watching a TV series with my headset at night. I wasn't sure about the time, but it was probably 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Only one old neighbor next to my house is staying there for almost 4 seasons. He was most probably sleeping during those hours. Anyway, I don't want to make the story too long, so I'm gonna dive into it real quick. What a coincidence that I was watching Game of Thrones 4 episodes in a row, and White Walkers are about to come into a scene. I needed to stop the show, and I felt very thirsty indeed, so I walked about 4 steps to fill my glass. I was not under the influence of any substances. I remember the window next to my sofa was closed, but not so sure, and the single window was looking at the back of our house that has a small garden, and right after the garden wall, there is a big garden which is very, very dark. The big garden has lots of pine trees and is separated by a quiet distance from each other. The moment I was sipping from my glass, I couldn't swallow it because I heard a footstep from the back of my house from the garden. That footstep or big animal step or something freaked me out, and I could feel my heartbeat in my ear. Something out there crunched the bunch of dry leaves, or a single one that big. I panicked and ran through the window. I opened the curtain and saw something 10 meters away. It had stopped and looked at me, and there was pure silence. I assumed that a tall guy, maybe not even a human, is staring at me from the garden. I could not see his body or face because moonlight was very strong, in the dark, hitting the guy's back between 2 trees slightly behind. All I could do was make a stressed hissing noise, like the hush or a kind of a snake. I have no idea what kind of reaction that is. After that, I opened almost every light around me and tried to find something sharp, like a knife. I could not control my heartbeat or stay calm. I heard something outside, and this time it was from the side and a cat trying to catch bats on our dinner table. So I said, okay, it's a cat. I closed the curtain on the glass door. All of a sudden, one of the dinner table chairs dropped to the floor, and something hit the glass door intensely. A couple of quick steps, and I opened the curtain, and that cat was looking at me eye to eye. I opened the door and said, "Damn it." I walked out with my knives. The knives were blunt, kind of like a double sword. I was showing off and trying to be a tough guy or something, but there's no way you can see a damn thing in the dark behind a bunch of flowers and trees from the open balcony. The dinner table location. I said, "What's going on here?" And I couldn't forget, because this thing was very big and calm and cold without even breathing. I was 23 years old at that time, and if I didn't take my headset off and had gone out for a drink, this thing would probably have come too close. 5. In 2021, I took a part-time job at a corporate wedding venue in the Rockies. The venue is a beautiful old house on farm property. Picturesque mountain, farm, and Victorian stuff. Chef's kiss. During my first shift, I am given a tour of the underbelly of the house, where linens and laundry were stored. They had gutted the basement to make a huge laundry facility. It had lots of fabric hanging everywhere, industrial machinery, and long corridors. Perfect nope material. We'll come back to that area in a minute. After the tour, we went upstairs to this gorgeous Victorian mansion and started to set up the kitchen for the bridesmaids area. As we make small talk, the banquet lead stops me and says, "Before they get here, I just want to warn you about some creepy things, if you believe in that stuff." She continues and I tell her, "Oh, hell yeah." "There are a set of twins buried on the property and they totally haunt the grounds. I live in the carriage house and I've worked here for a few years and I've seen a lot of stuff." She has 3 giant dogs who are allowed to follow us on the property until guests arrive, and she proceeds to tell me all these stories about her dogs being spooked at weird hours of the night, and the occurrences have been especially bad lately. To be honest, I thought this was playful hazing, but her serious tone was too chilling to be a joke. I asked her if I would ever have to lock up alone. She replied with no, and that's why they offer to let banquet leads live on the property, who aren't scared of ghosts. People quit if they have to close alone. Fast forward to post-wedding cleanup. I'm cleaning the kitchen in the old house, and my banquet lead tells me she's going to lock up the dining hall outside and BRB. I was so tired I wasn't even thinking about these ghost twins roaming around. I let my guard down. The house was quiet and the ambience was lovely. At around 2:30ish a.m., I even started thinking how magical it must have been to live here, to enjoy the ambience night after night. Then out of nowhere, the door from the staff kitchen to the main dining area suddenly slammed closed. I dropped what I was doing, and I bolted to my lead, closing the dining hall. I could see her through the window the entire time, and no one else was on the property. It was out of literal nowhere, and I was terrified. She saw the look in my face and said, "Oh shit, already?" Like she had seen this a million times. She asked me if I wanted to finish laundry instead. I shakily said, "Okay." Only because it was post-COVID and needed money so bad. I didn't want to go back down there, but we had to finish at least getting the laundry started. Terrified and poor, I rolled to the washing machines with my big roller cart full of dirty tablecloths, and shortly after my banquet manager came down to help me load them. We started to load 2 separate machines, and out of nowhere, we hear what sounds like rustling in the rolling laundry cart behind us, like someone was in it rolling around. The wheels were squeaking in the most unnerving way. My banquet lead turns slowly and quietly towards me and says, "Let's leave these for tonight. I'll get up early and finish them." I don't know how to describe the level of fear we felt in that moment. She had said it had been getting worse earlier, and in that moment, this tough-as-nails manager had hit her breaking point of being scared. We had reached the apex of scary experiences this employee had seen, and on my first night. After trying to finish as much non-house-related work as we could, we clocked out and tried to laugh it all off. Our dogs had been helping us feel safe after the laundry incident. But I don't know how she lived there full time. I hated every shift so much that I quit after a month. No other occurrences happened to me after that night, only because I told them I couldn't close anymore due to my day job. It was actually because of the ghost twins. Scary stuff. Definitely spent some time cleansing myself after that experience. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 328. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do bub the like button, I would appreciate it. Thank you kindly. Alright, let's see. We're all good, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. Now, today's question is, and this one also comes thanks to Kathy Beckford, and that is, what dish would you choose on a wedding invitation? Chicken, beef, or vegetarian or vegan? That's kind of a tough one because I like all of those things, but I guess I'd probably choose the beef. I don't eat a lot of red meat these days, but wedding's a special occasion, and I'm going to assume the beef has some sort of gravy and mashed potatoes and veg with it, which is always very nice and comforting. I do like chicken, but you can have that anytime. Please do let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.